In this video, we're going to take a look at the DHCP lease process. So I'm actually here on my DHCP server, and we're going to look at statistics because I think that's really helpful. Got a little bigger. So when a client set to obtain a dynamic IP address boots up, it sends out a broadcast to find a DHCP server. This broadcast is called a DHCP discover packet. And if you look here on the screen where it says discovers, this is listing the discover packets that this DHCP server has received. Now, I just restarted DHCP so that all these counters would be 0, and that's why it's there. The client must use broadcast because it has no IP address to use to receive replies. So the broadcast will have the client's MAC address. When the server responds, it responds with a broadcast addressed to the MAC address of the client. So we're going to go ahead and look at our client, set that to DHCP, and then come back and look at the discoverers. Our DHCP server is not going to respond to the client because I have 2 scopes here and they're both deactivated. And I'm doing that for a reason. I just want to see the discoverers right now. So let's go over to our client, set it to DHCP, and take a look at what happens. So I'm here on my client, which is a Windows 10 machine, and we're going to go into the network card, change it over from a static IP address to use DHCP. Perfect. Now it's looking for a DHCP server. Let's go back to the DHCP server and see what it looks like from that side. Back on our DHCP server, let's go ahead and refresh. And you can see it got 5 DHCP discover packets. The client was looking for a DHCP server to help it out. This server didn't respond. Every DHCP server that gets that DHCP discover packet, what it would normally do is select an address from the pool of available addresses. Then it replies to the client with a broadcast called a DHCP offer packet, which is this section right here for offers. And the offer packet would include a bunch of information like the IP address the server is offering, the subnet mask, the lease duration, or how long the client can use the IP address, the IP address of the DHCP server, and any additional information that's going with that address. The only time a DHCP server will not respond with a DHCP offer packet is if the DHCP server doesn't have any available addresses or it can't support that host. So in this case, our DHCP server doesn't have any available addresses because it doesn't have any addresses. That's why it's not responding. So let's go ahead and activate the scope. The client is going to continue trying for a certain amount of time, but after a while, it will give up. And you can see the statistics here just went a little bit crazy. So I'm just going to reset the DHCP server so that all that will go to 0. And while that's doing that, we're going to pop over to the client and just tell it to try again in case it stopped trying. No discovers. I'm thinking the client gave up. Let's tell the client to try again. Back on our client, I'm going to use the command prompt. I'm just going to do an ipconfig. Right now we have an APIPA address, so let's try a renew. And it picked up an address from the DHCP server. Let's go back to the DHCP server and check out what happened. So we'll go into our statistics. And you can see now it's really different. So it got the discover, it made an offer to the client. Now the client is going to get an offer from every DHCP server that gets the discover. If multiple DHCP servers respond, the client chooses the first response it gets, and it broadcasts a DHCP request packet naming the server it chose and asking to lease the offered IP address. So you can see here, there's the DHCP request packet, the client saying, yep, I'll take you. This is the only DHCP server that responded. Any DHCP servers that offered but were not chosen put the offered address back in the pool. The selected DHCP server marks the address as leased, and sends the client a DHCP ACK packet confirming the client has successfully leased the address. So there's the ACK packet that went from this DHCP server back to the client. Okay, you've got that address. Go ahead. You do not need to memorize the names of the packets. However, there's two things you should take note of. First, this is all done with broadcasts. And this can present a problem if you have multiple networks but want to use only one DHCP server. Since routers do not pass broadcast traffic by default, only the clients on the same network as the DHCP server will successfully get addresses. The second thing is the client picks the first DHCP server that responds. So if there's an unauthorized DHCP server, and in technology, when you have unauthorized hardware, we say rogue. So if there's a rogue DHCP server and the client gets the response from the rogue DHCP server first, it's going to pick the rogue. So typically, if I come in here, and there's lots of vendors for DHCP, I'm just showing you Microsoft because they have this nice statistics. But if I'm working with Microsoft DHCP, I can tell you what the problem is just by looking at the statistics. The clients are trying to get an IP address from DHCP and discovers are not going up. That indicates that there's a hardware problem. There's just not physically a connection between the client and this server. If discovers are going up, but offers are not going up, as we saw at the beginning of this video, it means that the server thinks it can't help the client. So maybe it's out of IP addresses, or the IP address on the server is set wrong, but it's something on the DHCP server itself. If discovers are going up, offers are going up, but requests are not going up, that tells me that there is a rogue DHCP server in the environment. If the client is not choosing this DHCP server, why would that be? Because it chose a different DHCP server. And I have never seen it where discovers are going up, offers are going up, requests are going up, but ACKs are not going up. I don't know what that would be. So that's it for this video. In this video, we looked at the DHCP lease process. We explored the broadcasts that the clients send out to obtain an IP address from the DHCP server. And we talked about some of the difficulties that could come from that process.